Welcome to the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada's Introduction to Stamp Collecting series. I'm Greg Redner, I'm the president of the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada, and I'm glad you're here today. This series is designed to help the beginner or new collector consider some issues which are important and learn a little bit more about the basics of stamp collecting. Today we're going to talk about whether you should choose a stamp album or a stock book to house your collection when you're first beginning to collect. So why do you need to house your collection? Um, all of us early on buy large collections of stamps. Sometimes we buy what used to be called mission collections, where you get a bag full of stamps that have been soaked off of covers, and it's a really good way to be able to fill your basics of your collection really quickly. We buy off paper accumulations. And at some point or the other, after we've sorted them or even not sorted them, you should see a few of the piles around my stamp room, we get to the point where we think, I got to make some order out of this chaos. And so we start thinking about purchasing an album or a stock book to be able to accomplish that. So what are the reasons why it's a good idea to store your collection in some way? Well, first of all, it prevents damage from light and environmental conditions. Dust is not particularly good for stamps, can be abrasive. Light is very damaging. Take a common stamp and let it sit on your desk, even on a desk that doesn't have a direct sunlight shining through it. Leave it there for 6 months and come back and take a look at it next to another stamp that hasn't happened with, and you'll find out that the light has really degraded the color and the ink. The less you handle your collection, the less chance there is to damage it. And this is obvious, but if you organize your stamps in a collection or you organize your stamps in a stock book or album, you can flip through the pages without actually needing to touch the stamps and see them and enjoy them. It also helps you organize your collection. As I said earlier, one of the things that characterizes the collector is we like to bring order out of chaos. That's not always the case. I have a few friends that could not be said about. But as a general rule, we like to take a massive accumulation and organize it in a way that it makes sense. Of course, an album is a fantastic way to do this because you're able to place the stamps in the album on their respective pages, and you have the satisfaction of watching the pages fill up. And also, in terms of the next one, it helps you see what you need. Going through the pages, you might have a little bit of extra money this month, so you look towards the beginning of your pages of your album where more expensive stamps are, or perhaps things are a little tight and you can look at the back of the album and find stamps that are more common. But it helps you to see not only what you have but what you need, and also prevents you from buying stamps that you already have and wasting your collecting budget. This one was really important to me early on. It can give you a sense of satisfaction as you see your album pages fill up. And I really think that that's an underrated thought for most collectors. I love it when I fill an album page up and put that last stamp on it. So there's the satisfaction of a completed album page. So which is better, an album or a stock book? This mess of worldwide stamps looks like a number that I have laying around my stamp room right now. So if I want to take this and organize it, obviously this is a worldwide collection and that's a huge number of albums. But anyway, let's assume that they're all Canadian stamps and I want to organize it. Well, which is better for me, an album or a stock book? Let's take a look at both. So stamp albums, there are many different kinds of stamp albums. Here's an album that has no printed pictures and no identifying numbers on it. What it has is an area that says United States 1963 to 1966 on the upper left. This allows you the possibility of organizing these pages the way you would like to. Um, and in this person's case, it's kind of just a mishmash. I have a feeling these got selected off of incoming mail and soaked off and placed on the pages in the order in which they came. But regardless, this gives you complete flexibility. And obviously, when you're using and collecting uh, non-mint stamps, you can hinge them in the album, that's fine. But if you are collecting mint stamps, you can always get a mount cutter and use stamp mounts so that you don't have to have hinges in it. Here's another possibility. This person has taken pages from some particular album producer and created his own album sheets. He's organized them, or she has organized them according to the way that makes most sense for them and the way they collect. And this is a time consuming but also very satisfying way to house your collection in a manner that's particularly useful to you. Here's the classic album. It's a Germany album, and you'll notice that there are several things here. We have years at the top of the page that help us when we're going through our stamp catalog to figure out which stamps go in which section. But they're also identifying catalog numbers. And in this case, there are not a lot of pictures, but there are colors given. And so with a catalog, I can go through a stamp and basically figure out which stamp goes on which page. You'll notice also that the stamps that are used are hinged into the album, but you'll see those upper left-hand corner and bottom left-hand corner with the black frame. Those are mounts that the person has glued in and then placed the stamp in to preserve the gum on the back. So you can do both. You don't have to have only hingeless, only hinges and only mounts. You can mix them if that works for you. Here's another interesting way that stamp albums have been produced in the last 20 or so years, I would say, maybe longer than that, but 20 or so years, and that is the hingeless album. And these are albums, if you look at the stamp that's being placed in there by the person with the tongs, there's a picture behind that in black and white. There's already an album there's already a mount on the album, and you don't have to decide, am I going to put a hinge on the back of this, or you don't have to cut the mounts. They're already there. And so you just place your stamps inside, which is very convenient. I have a beautiful, nearly complete Belgian collection that goes from the 1849 to 1949, and I have it in a beautiful album that has hingeless mounts, and it's a really nice thing. The one drawback is that these albums can be quite expensive compared to the normal printed album, so that's something to take into consideration, that budget is an issue. Last of all, and this is something that I think is really wonder of the computer age that we live in. If you search in downloadable album pages with the name of a country, you can almost always find pages that you can download and print yourself. And this is a really cost-effective way to do this. The one thing that I would caution about in this regard is if you have printed the pages, you have to make sure that the pages are on acid-free paper. some of the chemicals, we'll talk about this in a little bit at the end, but some of the chemicals that are in normal printer paper and paper that you buy, they contain acid and some other things that can actually damage your stamps and over the course of time degrade the condition of them. Okay, next of all, stock books. It's a different approach. But I find it really useful. If you look at this picture here, you'll notice that they're stock books of different sizes. That's one of the advantages. I'm in the process right now of looking at die types for a particular issue, the King Albert I issue of Belgium from 1915. And this study and this project fits beautifully into one of those albums on the right. I don't need more than 32 pages or so to do this, and so it's perfect. However, if I was doing something like doing a collection of Belgium railway stamps, I would definitely need an album as large as the one on the left-hand side, because this topic covers well over 100 years with dozens of stamps issued every year and many different types. So the beauty of stock books is that you can pick one that specifically fits the size of your project. So a stock book has no printed pictures in it. It's just a book designed originally for dealers to house their collections, perhaps by country or type. And all it is basically is a white sheet or a black sheet. I like the black sheets because I like the way my stamps pop off them a little better, but it doesn't really matter. And they have a pocket every so often down the page into which you put your stamps. It holds them secure. They're perfectly safe, and usually a glassine interleaf between the pages so that you don't cross-contaminate your stamps on the left side with ink from the right side. It keeps them separate and protects them. And this is a pretty standard stock book. This is a slightly better stock book, better in relative terms. Don't take that as a judgment. It's a little bit more solid. It has a plastic area at the bottom for you to put your stamps into. It's harder to tear that. It can be the glassine, if you're not careful, you can tear on the preceding page. But these plastic holders tend to be a little bit more, they can take a bit more abuse. One caution, however, they are also very solid and very sharp. And if you put your stamps in carelessly, you can very easily chop off a perf or cut your stamp right down the middle on these. This is not to steer you away from this type. You just have to be careful. We've all done it where we have a stamp that we really love and we're not paying attention and we put it in and oops, all of a sudden the bottom left-hand corner has either been torn or chopped off. So be careful with the plastic sheets. Just treat them with extra care and they'll house your collection for a long time. One of the alternatives to stock books is actually a binder. And these are just generic binders. And I like these very much because I can, again, pick a binder that's the right size for my project that I'm working on or the stamps that I'm going to use. And I can design the project according to purchasing the binder and the sheets according to the size of the project. And then I put a label on the back of it. And a lot of my collection is actually in white binders that range from 3/4 of an inch to 3 inches. No, that doesn't look quite as fancy as a wall full of beautiful catalog, or not catalogs, but stamp albums, but it really does the job. So what do you put them in if you decide to go this way? Where do your stamps go? Well, there are these stock sheets. which you can buy. There are many different publishers of the stock sheets. You can go on any stamp dealer website and type in stock sheets, and a number of different producers will come up. And basically, they're like individual sheets from a stock book. They're slightly, maybe slightly heavier, and they have sleeves for you to put your stamps in. And you'll notice on the left-hand side, there are a wide variety of configurations so that they'll fit pretty much any normal size binder. They're also available in a lot of different sizes. Here's one that's designed, if you could see the entire sheet, which PowerPoint won't let me do, this is designed basically to hold two covers. And this is really what I use my white binders for. My stamps go in stock books and my covers go in binders on stock sheets. And they come in a couple of different sizes. There's one that's has 3 sections like this for smaller covers. There's one where the entire sheet is one pocket. If you have a document or something that's larger that you want to put in there. But the reason I like these, you notice this one is black, and I realize this is a drawing, but they come in 2 different types. Black, which allows you to put 4 different covers in, and these are really useful. So 2 on each side. These are really useful because if you have a cover that doesn't have anything that really is of interest to you on the back, you can get 4 covers on a stock sheet. So that's really much more cost effective than the clear ones, which you can only get 2 covers into because you can see both sides of the stock sheet. The advantage of the clear covers is sometimes there's information, the clear stock sheets is sometimes there's information on the back of the cover that you want to be able to access. And what's great about this is it allows you to see both sides of the cover without having to pull it out. Again, wear and tear is an issue. So I can see both sides and study them without having to actually touch my cover. There's some things to be careful about. We've already mentioned this, but make sure that the paper and plastic that you're housing your collection in is of archival quality. And you can, there are lots of different ways to search for this. If you go on a major stationery brand in your country on their website and you type in museum quality paper or acid-free paper or archival quality paper, that you'll be able to find these with relative ease. The same thing goes with plastics. When I buy page protectors for my exhibits, I always make sure that I type in archival quality page protectors or acid-free page protectors, because the acid in paper and also the certain chemicals in plastics can really damage your stamps. So I hope this has been useful to you today. We're really grateful that you came along. If you have a topic that you would like to see us consider in this series, please email us at talks@rpsc.org.